Let's begin. We're beginning with the Shur of the Zohar. We're still in Bereshit, and we still have a ways to go. The volume I am looking at for Bereshit has something like 800 pages, and we're on page 200. And we have only done 1 year, one academic year, so to speak. We're at the Yechiel Foundation. Today is June 10th, 2012. And we are still exploring the secrets of the first sentence of Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim ve'et haaretz. We have seen how Bereshit bara begins with 2 bits. Bereshit bet, it starts with bet. Bara starts with bet. Elohim, aleph, et aleph. There were 2 bets and 2 alephs. But then it says, Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim ve'et haaretz. So the ve'et also has a secret. Ve'et is vav. And then you have et aleph tav. In ve'et we have vav aleph tav. So this is divided in 2. Vav on one hand and aleph tav on the other. What is aleph tav? Aleph tav is the entire Hebrew alphabet, from aleph to tav. What are the 22 letters? The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are all the tools necessary for the creation of the universe. And what are they? Aleph, Mim, Shin, which form the word emesh. Aleph is air, Mim is water, Shin is fire. They are the 3 elements, plus 12 signs of the zodiac, plus 7 planets, give us the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which are all the astral essences. And the Vav is the connection that is going to drain all the astral essences to this world. And that is why Zohar 1 in scroll 30a says, everything that is produced on earth is no more than the effect of a cause that exists in heaven. There is nothing below that has not first had its cause in heaven. What is heaven? The Zohar Ha Kadosh, and here we have some special vocabulary, because the Zohar Ha Kadosh has its own very special vocabulary. Heaven is the human soul. And what is the earth? Because it says everything that is created on earth is no more than the effect of the cause in heaven. Well, the earth designates the body, and heaven designates the soul. That is, everything that is going to happen to this body has its origin in its soul. And how do we go from what happens in the soul to what is going to happen in the body? Because what is the body? The body is going to move in a dimension where there will be events, where things will happen. The origin of what is going to happen in our lives has its cause in the soul. And how do we go from the soul to the body? With a tool that turns thoughts and feelings with their roots in the soul. That tool manifests those things in physical events that will be addressed by the body. What is that tool? It's the anabehoa. The anabehoa is what will give a clean appearance to materialize what's in the soul and transform it into events experienced by the body. Here we know that anabehoa is 42 letters that materialize from thoughts to deeds. The Zohar Ha Kadosh tells us that these 42 letters have given birth to all shapes and all images that exist in this world. But it does not work in the original direction of the Anabehoa. It works in the opposite direction. That is, from the last letter of the Anabehoa to the first letter of the Anabehoa. Why does it work in the opposite direction or inverse order? It works in inverse order because the allegory to understand this is that of a rubber stamp or seal, like what you would use to put a stamp on a paper. The die of the stamp is etched in the opposite or negative image, and when you stamp the paper with it, the correct image appears. What this means is that the world of above works in the opposite direction from that of below. Impregnation below occurs because it was etched in the opposite direction in the world above. And now we come to how the Anabehoa can intervene from the soul to the body. It's very simple. Listen closely. Moshe Rabbeinu, when facing the burning bush, asked God, "What's your name? Who are you?" HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him in Hebrew, Echye Ashe Echye, which is poorly translated as I am who I am. But Echye is Aleph He, Yud He. Its numerical value is 21. How many times did he say it? Twice. 21 plus 21 gives us 42. And at that time, before he told him that, he told Moshe Rabbeinu, "Take off your sandals, because the place you're standing is holy ground." What does it mean to remove your sandals? Gaon de Vilna wrote that the body is called shoe and the soul foot. Why? Because the soul enters the body, is embodied, but the part that is embodied is only a small lower extremity of the entire dimension of the soul. The soul covers the entire universe, all the planets, and all the stars of our universe. That is our soul. And what is inside here is just the foot, the lower underside of our souls. And so when he said, "Take off your sandals," he was saying, you have to disembody yourself to stand before me. That is, disembody yourself. Leave your body. And at that time, he told him, Echye Asher Echye. And he said, "But be careful. When the people ask you my name, do not say Echye Asher Echye. Say only Echye once. Give them the name of 21, but not that of 42, because they have not yet removed their sandals." That is what this means. It's a significant allegory. The divine essence was speaking to the soul. The soul is divine essence. And what does this mean? That God has etched in the soul of man the 42 letters of the name of Anabehoa. That is, he has etched symbols, 2 times 21, Echye Asher Echye, that is the name of God, but that name of God, that is Aleph Bet Gimel, and continues the entire Anabehoa. We take the initials of 42 letters. Those 42 letters are etched in each of our souls, but backwards, as a negative. From the last to the first letter. That is, it goes up like this, not like this. And that power of that name of God is what makes it go from the soul to the body and materialize in an event. So, when you want an event to happen, we sow the seeds in our soul. We meditate on the letters of Anabehoa in inverse order. It conveys it to the body. And the body, which is made up of astral essence of the 22 letters, transforms the thought seed into a real event. and the miracle occurs. So in a way, I'm teaching you how to work a miracle. I have also talked to you about how we are made up of a soul and a body. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he created us, when he created Adam, he did not say, I made man. He said, Naaseh Adam, in plural. Let's make man. What does this mean? That the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet created the body, and God added the Vav. God added his essence, and he also added the Aleph Latav, that is, all the astral essences plus Emesh, air, water, and fire. With the astral essences formed our body. So our bodies can materialize from the soul by meditating the Ana Bechoah in inverse order. Here, there is a very interesting thing in the Torah. That which appears to be in order in this physical world, in the heavenly world, is the other way around, in inverse order. How do we know this? We know it from the writing of Zohar Ha Kadosh on the creation of the world. Before creating the world, says the Zohar Ha Kadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu rejoiced in the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. As each of the letters is sublime thought, he combined them, those thoughts, and it gave him great joy. And with those thoughts, there came a time when he said, I'm going to create the world using those thoughts, that is, those 22 letters. What happened? The last letter presented itself first. The letter Tav presented itself first. The Hebrew alphabet goes from Aleph to Tav, 22 letters. Usually, Aleph should have presented itself first to create the world and say to God, I present myself to create the world. But no, Tav presented itself first. So, we are already into a mechanism that is going in inverse order. Well, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not accept the letter Tav because he said it was part of the word met, death, and he did not want to include that concept in the creation of the world. Although he did defend the letter Tav by saying that it was part of the word emet, which is truth. So he rejected the letter Tav. The letter Shin came, the penultimate letter. It presented itself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the letters presented themselves one by one, from the last to the second one, the letter Bet. And why? Because the letter Aleph did not present itself. In other words, the one that should have presented itself first did not present itself at all. Why not? It stayed in its place. And the letter Aleph, is a name of God, made up of Yud, Vav, Yud, which add up to 26. The letter Aleph is written thus. Yud, Vav, Yud. This Yud is worth 10, the Vav is worth 6, this Yud is worth 10, 10 plus 10, 20 plus 6, 26, which is the name of God, Yud Ke Vav Che. So the first letter did not present itself. And why didn't it? Because it is the symbol of unity, and above all, the symbol of humility. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to Aleph? Well, if you are not presenting yourself, I will use you to designate my name. Ehyeh. You will be the initial of my name, Ehyeh. All of this story of the Zohar, what does it teach us? It teaches us that the world of above works in reverse, and we can't understand that very well. But look, what does it mean to be right-handed? That you use your right hand to do things. But if you ascend in a mental level, which of the two brains directs the right hand? It's the left brain. Being left-handed means using mostly your left hand, but at the cerebral level, it's the right brain that governs it. So there is a crossover between the upper and lower parts. Our body is built that way too. So if they insult you, humiliate you, is that good or bad? It's very good. Why? Because in heaven, it's a blessing, of course. And if they praise you, is that good or bad? Bad, because it's the opposite in heaven. Why is it the opposite in heaven? Because it would be the opposite of what it is down here. Oh, now you know how to explain it. It can't be that complicated. If you want to destroy someone, praise their ego. They will begin to think of themselves as God and distance themselves from God, and then they'll be lost. We must never praise the ego. The Zohar tells us this. Water comes from air. Air comes from fire, and fire comes from water. How can that be explained? It's complicated. Water comes from air. Air comes from fire, and fire comes from water. Water comes from air. Air comes from fire, and fire comes from water. If you don't put it in a circle, you won't be able to solve it. So you have to put it in a circle. What is water? Water is emotion. What is air? It's the intellect. What is fire? It's the spirit. Water comes from air. Air comes from fire, and fire comes from water. Now, let's pass it over to the concepts. Emotions come from intellect. Intellect comes from spirit. Spirit comes from emotions. Who can explain this? Could you say it again? Sure. Let me say it again. Water comes from air. Air comes from fire. Fire comes from water. What is water? Emotions. What is air? Intellect. What is fire? The spirit. Now then, water comes from air. What am I saying? That emotions come from intellect. Air comes from fire. What am I saying? That intellect comes from the spirit. And fire comes from water. What does that mean? That the spirit comes from emotions. What does it mean? If we want to activate the spiritual world, we must activate strong emotion here below. There are only two possible emotions, as we have said in prior classes. What are they? Love and fear. Love and fear. Love or fear. Now, I will tell you something I discovered as I prepared this shiur. Fear is etched in your DNA. Fear is etched in your DNA. Because from generation to generation, from Adam Arishon to today, every generation has lived in fear, until this has become crystallized as an innate record in our DNA. But there has not been love from Adam until today. Now, how can I dislodge that etching of fear in my DNA and replace it with a new etching called love? How can I do that? It's a difficult question. We have been afraid for 5,772 years, according to the Jewish calendar. How can I eradicate this, which has been in our DNA for 5,772 years in one fell swoop? How can I get it out? How can I dislodge it? I'm listening. By changing DNA? No, I'm not changing DNA. I'm taking out that record that's embedded in our DNA. You said there were two emotions. Yes, love or fear. And that is also etched in our heart. And the heart is what gives us emotions because it has a... I'm talking about DNA, the essence of all cells, even heart cells. Each cell has its DNA. Each cell bears the seal of fear. How can I remove that seal? The Hebrew letters are only equal to love. The extra DNA matrix. What? The divine matrix? The divine matrix cannot remove the essence of your DNA. The spirit, by generating emotions. If the spirit generates emotion, and there are two emotions, fear and love, the main ones are fear and love, and we always have lived with fear since Adam. If emotions are made by the spirit, we should re-educate or cultivate our spirit. Cultivate the spirit, or re-educate it, or change something. We have to regenerate the DNA? How is DNA regenerated? Let's see. How do we come into this world? Through a stem cell. No. Those things you say are the final effect, the material part. Before we come to the world, what happens to our soul? Where does it go through? Where do the souls of the Jewish people come from? Do you know? They come from Binah. What is Binah? Atziluth. Atziluth, but from where? Binah is the soul of the planet Shabtai, where the word Shabbat comes from. Shabtai is Saturn. We come from the core of Saturn. Then, from that core, this is told by a great Kabbalist called Jiga Tila, in which he tells of the secrets of the twin souls of David and Bathsheba. It tells us that the neshamot, the souls, come from Binah, and we know that Binah is Shabtai, and so on. But that's advanced Kabbalah. So then, before coming to the world, the soul is dressed in layers. Just as when the physical baby is gestated in the mother's womb, it's created by layers. The skeleton, then the tendons, the nervous system, then the organs, the muscles, and at last, the skin. Right. It goes by layers, doesn't it? Or am I leaving something out? Some layer. Well, this isn't a medicine class, but it goes by layers. Just like a body is made by layers, so is the neshama dressed by layers. The neshama, to come from Binah to Malchut, to come from a very high world, and arrive in the physical world, and then begin. As of the time it comes to this physical world, it begins to dress itself in a body by layers. The soul also dresses itself in layers. So what has to happen? From Binah, it must dress itself in Chesed. From Chesed to Gevurah. From Gevurah to Tiferet. From Tiferet to Netzah. Netzah to Chod. Chod to Yisod. And Yisod to Malchut. Okay? The tree of life. Shall I draw it for you? Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, the Moon, and the Earth. Okay, so the soul begins in the core here, goes through all these cores before coming down to the earth. It dresses itself in layers. Here it has no layers. The first layer, second layer, third layer, fourth layer, fifth layer, sixth layer, and seventh layer. There are 7 layers. Okay? So it's very simple. We've gone from below to above. Excuse me? No. Or no. I will read what the Zohar says. The Zohar, and I started class this way today. It tells us, everything produced on earth has its origin in heaven. So, everything that happens in the body has its origin in the soul. Where is DNA from? The body or the soul? Is DNA from the body or the soul? The soul. DNA belongs to the soul? Excuse me? The body. DNA has been synthesized in labs, so it's physical. The body. Where is the origin of DNA? Everything that happens on earth has its origin in heaven. Everything that happens in the body has its origin in the soul. What are we talking about? DNA? It's from earth. Where is the origin of DNA? The soul. So we have to go to the origin of the soul. Where do we have to get rid of fear? Here, in Binah. We must go to Binah to get rid of fear. And dress Shema again in Hesed, Geburah, Tiferet, Netzah, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut, and bring it back to the physical world, clean from fear. Where will we meditate to get rid of fear? Here, in the highest level of Binah. When are we in Binah? Shabbat, on the Shabbat. On the Shabbat, we have to do the work to eradicate fear. Shabbat, Yom Kippur, when we read Psalm 145, and when you enter mikveh, you're in Binah. If you do immersions in mikveh, it's good to do 7 immersions. The first immersion is already sowing the seed of love inside their soul essence, so that when they're finished with the 7 immersions, they come out with their DNA cleansed of fear. And then meditate the 42 letters of Ana Bechoah in inverse order to pass them on to the body. Who doesn't understand what we're talking about? Who hasn't gotten it? This is a very important concept, because fear is the root of all human flaws, from rage to envy to greed to egoism. It all comes from fear. If you take away the midah, the flaw of fear from a person, if you took that out of the equation, all their flaws would disappear. All their flaws would be gone. I don't understand. I don't understand, because in Atzilut, there is normally no flaws. How can there be flaws in Binah? No, there is no flaw in Binah. To the contrary, there is love in Binah. From 5,772 years of living here on earth with fear, something has been recorded, etched in our souls. Fear. What must we do? Go to a world where there is no fear, where there's only love. Take the love from there and bring it down through the layers from Binah to Malchut to re-engrave it with love. And once we've cleaned fear at its origin, at its source, I need an educational example for you to understand it better. I'm going to use an example that has just come to mind. And it may be a little shocking, but I think you'll get it. Let's talk about excrements and garbage. Are they good or bad? They're bad. Yes, they're dirty. They're disgusting. And now, let's talk about the light from a light bulb. Is that good or bad? It's good. How can I turn excrement into a lit light bulb? How can I do that? How does society do that? Taking all the sewage and waste and turn it into energy. There are huge machines that burn at thousands of degrees the excrement and turn it into compressed vapor that goes to a turbine and makes electricity, which is then sent to our homes. Well, this is the same thing. What's bad on earth, we must send it up to that huge furnace that vaporizes everything. That's Binah. That's Shabbat. It cleans it all. It transforms it into pure energy. All human flaws passed through Shabbat are cleaned. Shabbat is Binah, but mikveh is also Binah. So he who goes to mikveh, it's as if he took all the excrement and put it into one of those 1,000-degree furnaces and turned it into pure energy. It's a metaphor, okay? But I think the metaphor has helped you understand it better. Albert, why is Shabbat oneg? Oneg? Why oneg? In the word oneg is the word gan, which is garden. And the letter ayin is redundant. Its numerical value is 70, which is sot. That is the garden of secrets. Why? Onek is ayin gan. Okay? I've taken away the ayin and I have gan, like Gan Eden. It's where the mind connects with the source of secrets from above, from heaven. The only thing that gives the soul happiness are secrets from heaven. There is nothing else. That is why on the day of Tisha B'Av, which is the day we lament the destruction of the temple and fast, we are forbidden from studying the Torah. Why? Because when you're in mourning, you're in rebellion against God. I don't know if you knew this. You're in rebellion against God. So you are not allowed to have this kind of pleasure. And that's why someone who has lost a loved one is not allowed to do mitvot the first 2 days because they would do so with rebellion. Then, later, they reconnect with the divine source. So what does it mean? That the only thing that can give the soul happiness is studying the secrets of the Torah. And that is called onek. Okay? Any more questions? When you said, Ichye asher Ichye, and you said that at the end it was 21 plus 21, 42, but in another shiur, you said that the word asher had the effect of multiplication, not of addition. So how do you do it with an asher that would be on its own? Asher is not that asher, it's called osher, happiness. It can be a multiplying effect because it is telling you that the name of God is true, which gives you happiness because 21 times 21 gives us 441, the numerical value of the word emet. It's telling you that the name of God is true. It's another way to understand it. Ichye, asher, ichye would be 21 times 21, 441. Emet is aleph, 1, mem, 40, and tav, 400, 441. Just like 21 times 21. Ichye, asher, achye. It's simply telling you that the name of God is true. And it turns out we have that name of God etched in our souls. And it's what turns emotions and thoughts into physical, bodily manifestations. Well then, the Zohar tells us that the word bet Bereshit should be read bet Reshit, two beginnings. Bet is a Hebrew figure. The Aleph counts for 1, the Bet counts for 2, the Gimet counts for 3. So Bet is 2. And the word Bereshit means beginning. Bereshit would be Bet separated from the word Reshit, two beginnings. But it's not two beginnings. It's the second beginning. So in the tree of life, what is the first beginning? It's Keter. And then what comes after Keter? Chokmah. Chokmah, what is it? The world of meditation. And Chokmah, the Zohar tells us, and write this down, is the key to designate the verb. And what did God create the world with? The verb. But what's the verb? It's Chokmah. And what is Chokmah? Meditation. That is, meditating Hebrew letters, God created the world. And as we are created in His likeness, meditating the names of God, we are creators just like Him. And what does this mean? That we are a divine essence with the same creating power as God. Why do we have the same creating power as God? Why? No. Because God, by definition, is the aspect of giving in absolute value. With God, there is no desire to receive. It's the value of giving completely, without any desire of receiving. When you have the desire to give absolutely, what's the most you can give? Yourself. Himself. And if God wants to give of Himself, what's He giving? His creating power. What He has given us is His creating power. Could there be a more sublime gift that He could have given us? Is there anything more than that? No, there is not. We are creators, just like Him, because He gave us that gift. That is why we must read the Torah in two words. Torah is read tar on one hand and vav che on the other. I'll draw it for you, otherwise you won't understand it. Torah is Tav, Vav, Resh, and Che. That is how you write Torah. Do you see that? If I take out the particles of the name of God, which are Vav and Ve, the final particles of the name of God, because the name of God is Yud Che Vav Che, I'm taking out Vav Che. Now I'll tell you why. What letters are left? Tav and Resh. Tar comes from the word spy, observe, to see with the idea of spying. It would be like spy vav che, or observe vav che, like a spy observes things. And what is vav che? In the name of God, there are two particles, yud che and vav che. Yud che is the soul, vav che is the body. So, what is the Torah? It's the secret of how you get the physical world to work. Observe vav che. Observe the body. Observe how your body is working right now. That is the Torah, the secret of how one must observe and pay attention. If we all have divine essence, because He has given us that gift, no two of us will observe the world the same way. Just as we have a different iris or fingerprint or DNA, it's all different. We also have a capacity to observe the world differently. And if I gave you a sheet of paper and asked you to write down how you conceive of God, and each of you wrote down your views, no two of those papers would be alike. And even if you did it again next year, that paper will not look like the previous one. But no two people observe alike. There are 7 billion people in the world, and no two of them coincide in how they view the world. Because each has a different level of consciousness. And we know that the observer modifies the energy. A wave observed by an observer transforms into particles. That is, the world is as we observe it. And since there are 7 billion people observing it, there are 7 billion ways in which the world is changing. It's like a kaleidoscope. Do you know what a kaleidoscope is? Like that toy where you turn the cylinder and the image changes? Imagine 7 billion observers turning the kaleidoscope all the time. That is the world we have created. The bad thing is, we have created it tending toward chaos. Now we must create it tending toward harmony. Well, let's take a break before the meditation. Excuse me? There are 2 ways to observe, with fear and love. You can put energy of love into what you're observing, or fear energy. Fear impregnates the earth in creation. In generic terms, yes, but then fears have different modulations. Not everyone has the same type of fear. Not everyone has the same way of observing, or the same feeling when you observe the world, or when you observe what is happening to you. It's highly variable. Any questions before we end the theoretical part? Because now we'll go to the meditation, which is the practical part. But the world does not work in 7 million ways. 7 billion ways. It only works in one. The world works in 7 billion ways combined. It's like a formula with 7 billion. It's an enormous equation with 7 billion variables, and the combination of those variables is the world we have. But that's the illusion. The truth is, there's only one. The only one is the one God has told us. Observe the world, and that is the world you will have. That's all he said. Observe it. But it's not the same to observe it with knowledge as it is to do so with ignorance. It's not the same to observe it with an intellectual mind as it is to do it with a spiritual mind. It's not the same to observe it guided by a teacher as it is to observe it based on what you've learned from life. Now, the power we can have in meditation on combinations of the names of God is so big, it can change the way the other 7 billion people observe the world. We can alter the global state of consciousness with just one well-directed meditation, with well-directed names of God, and with combinations of letters that have an amplifying power, because letters are amplifiers of thought. We'll meditate a name of God, which is Yud He Vav. I'll show it to you. Here it is. We said that human beings have a light side and a dark side. The light side is full of love. The dark is full of fear. This Yud He Vav lights up a person's dark side. We'll place it in the middle, and then we will spread it out to the world. Do you need to see it throughout the meditation? Okay, let's put our feet parallel on the floor. Hands on our knees, palms up. Let's take 3 deep breaths. Let's breathe in positive energy. Hold your breath a moment. Now exhale all worries, anxiety. Again. Lower your shoulders. Relax your trunk, legs, feet. Again. Now we envision a golden Star of David, Magen David, and we project ourselves into its inner hexagon with a column of light. It's us, in the form of a superior self, inside a column of light. Before us, another golden Star of David, the size of this room, lies. We call the 3 letters. We call the letter Yud. We light it like a candle. We call the letter Het. We light it. We call the letter Vav. And we light it. Now, these 3 flames of Yud, Ched, and Vav, we unite them in a single flame, which will burn out through the upper tip of the Star of David, leaving the other Star of David and entering our Star of David through the upper tip and descending through our skulls to light up our brains, descending to heart, lighting up the heart. Descending to the liver, lighting up the liver. Ascending to the heart, lighting up the heart. Ascending to the brain, lighting up the brain. Descending to the heart, ascending to the brain. Heart, brain, heart, brain, heart, brain. Heart, brain, heart, brain, heart, brain. And it exits through the upper part of our skulls, forming a cloud of white light, and flakes of light fall all around us, magnetizing our aura. Now, we will amplify this effect by sending a beam of golden light, like a sunbeam, among all our hearts. We imagine our hearts as pearls, and that beam is a string that unites the pearls. We will make the golden light beam travel through our hearts. Thus, we unite the hearts of all those present. That beam of light travels in a counterclockwise direction. And now we'll say Echad 3 times.
Echad.
And now that golden beam is becoming broader. That sunlight that travels through our hearts. It's very powerful. It takes the electromagnetic energy from each of our hearts. Now, we form a circle, placing the globe in the middle of all of us. And we will project from our foreheads a beam of violet light over the earth, laden with the light from our aura, Yud He Vav, which we just meditated on. That light ray carries the strength, and it's multiplied by the strength of our hearts, united by a golden thread. Now, we project that light over the earth, a violet light that destroys people's fears and all people's dark sides, that have been anchored in place for a long, long time, performing a deep cleansing of people's virtues. And we see them as if they were waking up from a sleep, in which they were as if hypnotized by unfounded fears. They awaken with an innocent, clean consciousness full of love. We are witnessing it. Now we see the angel Metatron and the angel Sandalphon, who come with a great talit. They open it, and they bless Betaka Kohanim of this earth, which is in a chaotic state, and now enters a state of innocence. That blessing, which could not previously enter through the dark side, now the dark side is gone, and it enters those who receive it. Now, love is like a virus that spreads from one to another contagiously, a virus of love. There is a desire to share that did not exist. It spreads quickly from one person to another. Now, I'll leave you to freely converse with Metatron and Sandalphon. Now we take 3 deep breaths. Again. Again. And we open our eyes. Well, first I felt the strength of the golden thread. It's a strength I felt inside myself, but not of mine, that of the entire group. So in truth, we've made a powerful weapon. After the meditation, and with the intercession of the 2 angels I have named, I asked them a question, and they answered me that all of the prophecies of the apocalypse, of Armageddon, of Gog and Magog, are summed up in a decree of cleansing by means of a cataclysm that would be very similar to Sodom and Gomorrah. And the angels told me, you all have managed to revoke that decree, so that decree will not come into effect. There will be no cataclysm. There will be no war. There will be none of that. The work we have done, stringing our hearts together, has had the result of revoking a decree, because prophecies can be fulfilled but not automatically, not necessarily so. It's a trend, but it's not something that has to be fulfilled no matter what. So I hope that my vision will be manifested in reality. Amen. Very well. With these words, class dismissed.